Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to tell my co-casters right now they're still muted. My guests even. There we go. Everyone's unmuted now. I was going to be talking to myself. Welcome to the EUM Masters Roadtrip. I am BP Cast. I'm joined again, of course, by the illustrious Ghostly Dreams. And this week, we've got Cmode Daniel even. Like, I was going to say mod, and I was like, because I missed the E. But Cmode Daniel, how are we getting on? How's it going, guys?
Where's the beautiful Challengermode, Daniel? Go Dreams would have got that 100% right. But BP
right?
with the flame straight from the get-go.
I have to go. It has to be done. But you are going to be joining us today. We're going to be talking everything Baltics. I was told explicitly not to say the other one, which is Balkans, and I'm like trying my very best not to mess them up. But delighted to have you here, man.
It's a pleasure, honestly, a pleasure to join you both. It's an interesting series that you guys are running, and a prelude to what is one of the biggest tournaments in EU outside of the LEC itself. So it's a big deal from all of the regions getting involved in it, and the Baltics and the Balkans are no different.
Wink
yeah,
face.
I think that's kind of what we're. I think that's what we're trying to do. Is like we kind of looking at there's some really awesome teams that are there and some really cool players. And when you get to European Masters, you're kind of like, wait, who is he? I have no idea. I've never seen anything about this guy. So we're hoping to kind of draw attention. And I think even looking at the Baltics, me and you, Dan, we both kind of look at a few of these players and like, these are damn good.
So no, it's absolutely true. I mean, like it's one of the more difficult things with the fact that the LEC has been franchised now is that you don't get this sort of move up and move down in terms of the teams. So things like the EU Masters are literally the only way for you to display your talent outside of the solo queue mentality. And don't get me wrong, we've seen a lot of players come up through solo queue and move into the big leagues. But similarly, you've seen some of these players come in from some of the EU Masters teams. You look at think about the likes of SK and whatnot these days. There's a lot of players that have had the opportunity to get themselves up in the spotlight, and the EU Masters gives them a great opportunity to do that.
So let's start there. Let's start what you guys just said. The players, the guys who make this league so much fun. Because obviously, no disrespect, but it would definitely regard a smaller league compared to the LFL or the Premier Tour.
100%.
But you guys,
100%.
you guys truly believe that there are some proper big stars in this league. I'll go to you, Dan, first, because you seem very passionate about it. Who are we looking out for? Who are the guys on your list?
I was going to say, I think I'm just pretty much passionate about most things, to be honest with you. But it's just the nature of who I am. No, there are some real talents within the league, to be honest with you. We've been casting the sort of the qualifiers for it over the last couple of weeks. We've still got a few more weeks to go before the grand finals at the end of August. But Rob and I have both had the opportunity to do sort of two splits of this now, so we've seen the journeys that these players have gone through and what they've looked into, albeit with a bit of roster changes and whatnot. There's a couple of players that stand out for me. I think one of the guys which I think is unbelievably talented, albeit it's a weird one for him in terms of meta right now because he's got this certain stylistic approach. He's a top laner called Smackler who's playing on one of the teams called Kenty. This guy is, even if you consider the fact that, and I think Rob will agree with me here, he isn't on the strongest team. But I tell you what, God, he puts in massive performances every single time. In the games that they win, more often than not, this guy is like absolutely pivotal. The foundations that this team victory was built around. And in the games that they lose, you look at what's happened in the game and you can't knock what he has done in that game. It's like, holy cow, this guy's been a beast, but it was the rest of the team that let him down. That whole mentality of like, the reason I'm stuck in this ELO is because the rest of the team. Shit, this guy is totally in that situation because this guy is solid every single freaking time.
I think one of the coolest things about Smackler is just his awareness of what he needs to be and where he needs to be at all points in time in the game. So there's a play that'll happen in bot lane, and I swear to God, the play's kicked off for 0.2 of a second, and already he's TPing. Just out of nowhere, he's already moved back, realized stuff's about to go down, we need to be in the bottom lane, and he'll teleport in. And there was one game that we were watching where it was 2 to 3 seconds before the other top laner had even copped that there was something going on, and Smackler's already down there making the plays happen. In team fights, he's either he'll have these massive engagements, or else he's keeping 3 people busy off on the side, and he knows exactly how he needs to play these different situations. And I think that's what makes it so cool to watch him, is that you don't realize how much of an impact he's had until after the fact, and you go, how the hell did you even manage that? Like, how were you in that presence of mind to realize that was about to go down?
And it's just like, small nuanced things. I mean, back in season 2, we knew him for his Poppy play, which,
Yeah.
was not a meta champion at the time, but every single time he locked it in, he just absolutely wrecked fools. And it was like, wow, okay, so he's really good on this Poppy. But there were some question marks over some of his other champions. Coming into this new season, he's still pulling Poppy bans. I mean, just take note, what are we on? Like 913, 914 at the moment? You've not seen Poppy in any flipping region anywhere in the world. No one's playing Poppy right now, and he is still drawing bans on Poppy. Okay, but on top of that, he's like sort of dug into his champion pool a bit more. He's still got some of those dependable tanks and things. You think about the likes of the Ornn or Scion or whatnot, but also he's shown us some other examples of champions. In the last couple of weeks, you've seen him play Camille, and his Camille's been absolutely insane, and I mean, you talk about these TP plays, but it's more than just that. It's this ability to hit the stopwatch at the split second that he needs to pop off, big moving, roaming plays. And we've seen a new side to this guy, and he is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And I'd love to see him and the team that he's on actually progress through into the EU Masters, because we've seen how ludicrously strong this guy is individually. I'm actually curious to see what he's going to be like up against some of the other top laners in the world, because against some of his peers within the Baltic Masters, this guy is a full head height above the rest of them. Within Europe as a whole, I don't know, and I have a curiosity to sit and see, whether this guy actually does shape up to be one of these greats from a small region. You've seen it with the likes of someone like Perks, who's come in from, the Balkans, coming from the Balkans and proven himself to be one of the best players in the world. And I wonder whether there is a player like Smackler who can come from another one of the small regions of the world and prove to be one of the greats, because this guy is he's hot. He is really, really hot.
I think another one of the guys I've got my mind on is Xavielas as well. I know they played in European Masters last time, and he was playing with Yashiro at the time. And I was kind of like expecting big things from now. They kind of didn't quite work out for them. They still did pretty well for a small region, but I think I'd like to see him kind of go up again and see what he can do at that super high level. Because I mean, he's wrecking people in the Baltics at the moment. I mean, we saw his karma in week 1 and week 2. They were coming out with 30 to 40 CS leads from the laning phase, and then even back in season 2 last time, we were looking at him, and he was picking up this Alistair and Rakan and was just roaming all over the map. And it's really cool to see the different playstyles he can have, where it's a case of, okay, let's just wreck in the laning phase where I'm just poking you out consistent with karma and we're getting their wins that way. Or I can just roam around the map and be in the right place at the right time, pick up a whole bunch of kills, and we just wipe the floor with you that way. So it's kind of cool. I'd love to see him again at a higher level, see if he can work that magic again.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you with regards to Xavielas. Now, the interesting thing for me when you talk about the EU Masters, and I went back and had a look over some of the team lineups and the rosters that took part in the last EU Masters. I know you cast a lot of it, BP, so it's you'll have seen what I mean. And I think if you have a look at all of the different teams that took part in it and took stock of all of the different rosters, I actually think the support role is arguably one of the strongest positions that we have in EU right now. If you look at the ones that haven't quite made it into the LEC, I totally agree with you. I think Xavielas is absolutely tip top as a player. But if you look at some of the incredible talent that we have within the support role in Europe that isn't playing in the LEC, you think about the likes of Bravado, for example, who I think is playing on the Schalke Academy team at the moment. That guy is absolutely insane and still isn't playing in the LEC. And whilst I think Xavielas is certainly up there in terms of the talented sort of support roles, when I had a look at the EU Masters as a whole, it was that sort of like scratching head. Crap, there are so many good support players across Europe that aren't even in the LEC right now. It's a thick list of quality talent. But credit where credit's due. I think Xavielas is certainly in that list, if that makes sense. He is a player that is worthy of being on the list.
Yeah, especially like I'm looking at them there. I mean, you got like Steelback who's playing,
Yeah.
Vander was there, Heave is there, Falco even who was still on Mad Lines after a lot of them went on towards SK Prime or SK even. Like Yeah, it's just nuts.
It's it's a bonkers list. The support role is hella strong in Europe right now, which is weird because I think if you go back sort of 4 or 5 years, back to sort of season 3, season 4, I actually think the support role within Europe was actually pretty weak on the whole.
Yeah, we had two. I'm pretty sure we had two. That was it. Like we had Yellow Star, and then I can't even think of another one off the top of my head.
Ghost Who Dreams, Edward, who was like pretty decent.
Yes,
at the time.
Edward. Yes. Old
Go
school
see Pepper,
Gambit.
Yeah.
Go see Pepper, sorry, man.
I was like, ooh,
Yeah. I do main support. Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like the support main club just here. Me and Rob sat giving the love for the supports. Yeah. Outside of those two, there's a couple of other ones. Playing on the same team as Zavialis is a mid laner called ZTY. He played in the EU Masters, not the last time around, but the time before.
yeah,
He's curious insofar as the fact that he burns super hot or he burns super cold. He's got a really curious champ pool, which makes him quite hard to ban out, and you never truly know what you're coming in against. If they're on the red side and he's got the opportunity to counter pick, you're in for a troublesome time because his champion pool is deep as hell, and he's got some weird ass shit in there. So you'll be like, oh, I'll pick something safe, and he'll have something which has completely got you.
He's the Doomby of the Baltics, is he?
That's what we were laughing about was when we actually saw him in European Masters and they were playing on Turin. He just whipped out this Tryndamere mid in his last game, and we were like, what is that? And he just wrecked on it. And we're just, I think he was playing against Forge. I might be wrong with that one, but it was at the time I was just like, what is this pick? Like, why is this working? This should not be a thing. And then we're kind of seeing the same thing in the Baltics now, where like he'll just pull out these picks, and even the more staple picks like a Corki, he absolutely destroyed on yesterday. And it's just
yeah, he did. God damn, he destroyed.
He like flame horizoned his mid laner, and I think so. For the first 12 minutes, he averaged a 10 CS increase in his lead every 3 minutes. Like that's how strong this dude was. It was absolutely nuts. And that's another person that we should have like. Is definitely on the list of like players to watch from this region. They're just nuts.
Yeah, he is nuts. AD carry wise in the Baltics, honestly, I think they're all very average. You know, I mean,
Ishiro was the standout.
Yeah, and he's moved over to Poland this season, so he's playing over in Poland, so he's not going to be taking part in this region this time around. AD carry wise, honestly, is really very average. I'm not saying that they're bad players. You know, they're solid, dependable, reliable sort of AD carries. But there's no one you look at there and go, oh, here is the next, you know, Reckless. Here is the next, you know, Double Lift or something like this. They aren't there. But there is a jungler who stands out for me, which is Jornatis, who's playing on the Ensure team. This guy is crazy good, actually. He's got a really impressive understanding of the game. His micro skills are on point, but his macro knowledge and his macro sort of plays, moving in and around the map, you know, how he gets the right things going at the right time. And you know that as a jungler, if you're ever playing in jungle, it's always like, oh, I've got myself a real good gank, and it's like, oh god, the guy was here to counter gank me. How does he always know that I'm here? Honestly, I swear to God, Jonatas has like got some like hack, which means that he can see exactly where you are because he's always in the right place at the right time.
His jungler sense is off the chart.
Absolutely off the charts, man. It's pretty crazy.
His Silas game was disgusting. I remember they locked in Silas. It was his first game, and we were like, oh well, I mean, it's probably not Silas jungle. And then he just popped it out. I think he went 13-1 or something like that. He was absolutely everywhere. And I mean, I was like, okay, he's got his one pop-off game. And then he did it the next one and the next one. I was kind of like, okay, this guy's a bit nutty. And to be fair, there's actually a good few strong junglers. I mean, Frickus is kind of one of the new guys that's come in that look really strong. He's had some really strong performances. Magentis as well from Ensure last time looked really strong. Hasn't had as big of an impact to say this season, but definitely still another strong one. But yeah, I definitely agree. Jonathan is he's just insane. He's absolutely nuts. I don't know, like even in the games that we were watching yesterday, where he would show up like literally 1 to 2 seconds before the enemy jungler, because you'd like, yeah, my jungler just clears faster than yours, so that means I'm out there 1 to 2 seconds before you are, and I will get this gank off before you can arrive here. And you just would know that instinctually, and wouldn't even hesitate to, you know, try and get in a good position. He was just like, we've got this window to try and work with. This is our frame. Let's just make it work. And every single time it would happen. I was just like, how do you know that minute detail to make this work? It was crazy. It was so much fun to watch, though.
Yeah, he is good. But I mean, like in terms of the players, there are some great, solid sort of, in every team you need that sort of steady Eddie player that sort of does his job. And there's a lot of steady Eddies within the sort of the Baltic Masters League. But the players that we've just named are the ones that I think really stand out in terms of the region. They're ones that within their region stand out, and you'd like to think across the board would also stand out. But I mean, of course, we'll have to see. And the players that we've named come across 3, if not 4 different teams, and 4 different teams, and like that's tough because only one of them's going to make it.
And that actually is a fantastic segue to my next conversation, which is historically, the Baltics haven't been amazing in EU Masters in the actual Grand Tournament, but we've always heard about this guy's a monster, that guy's insane, this person here is like gonna be able to smurf the entire tournament. It hasn't really happened, and it hasn't really kind of formulated when it hit the big stage. And I want to ask you, is it a lack of like almost like big fish small pond syndrome, where they're just the best in their region, therefore they're not getting challenged? Or do you think it's more of a kind of like they get to the bigger boys and then the skill level is just that much higher, it's that much harder to really shine in that kind of a big pool?
You express your thoughts first, Rob, and then I just need to get my mind in check.
I think it's not so much as I think they are the individual performances that we're talking about are because these are the standout players. But I think the problem is that there's not enough of them in the one squad. And what ends up happening is that you have, the likes of Zavielas and Yushiro who look super strong, and there's incredible bot lane for Ensure. And then the rest of the map is still good, but they're not great. And then when they go up against these other teams where you've got like an absolutely insane teams coming out like France and Spain and Germany, and you're looking at these stacked rosters across the board, it's those little differences in those lanes where you think your off lanes from our fantastic individual players that ends up causing the issues where they can't quite match up, and suddenly Zavielas and Yushiro are slightly better than whatever the other bot laner is, but it's not enough to make up for the differences elsewhere, and I think that's where they start to fall apart. I think as well some of the macro can be a little bit shaky when it comes to Baltics. I think that can definitely hurt them. Especially there are definitely teams that are now starting to pick it up. Like Kenty's early game macro is really on point, but it's not something that they've seen a huge amount of and haven't played against. So when you go up against these teams like LDLC that come out of France and suddenly they're moving around the map 10 things a second, and you're like, what the hell? How are we supposed to keep up with this? And it's just the pace of the game takes that up a step. And if you don't have everyone at that super high level, well, then I think you face issues. And I think that's where the Baltics kind of has these fantastic players, but unfortunately, you've only got 1 to 2 drizzled here or there in a team, and it's not enough for them to pick up the entirety and carry the rest of the game.
I think that's spot on. I think that's absolutely spot on. You use the phrase like big fish in a small pond, and the players we've named definitely are big fish in the small pond. How do they scale up in terms of the bigger pond, the ocean, if you will? I think they're still pretty big fish. The problem is like this isn't a competition which measures you on an individual basis. Rob's absolutely right. You're looking at a team of 5, and you can be like absolutely stellar, like Yoshiro was, who has moved on to play for a bigger team in a bigger pond, if that makes sense, and is still doing very decently for himself. I think the problem is if you look at the EU Masters, the players that really shine are the ones that are picking up the big results, going really far in the tournament and getting some good results behind them. And these teams, whilst they are good, and even have some stellar players within it, when you put it into this sort of EU Masters setup, they're not going to get the same level of results, because I think other rosters have better players within them. And whilst they might be good, if not even better individually, there's 5 players on your team. We've all played in that game where it doesn't matter how freaking well you play, you cannot carry the other 4 people. And sometimes you'll end up with a situation like like I was saying with Smackler earlier on, in the games that they've lost, you look at the performances put in and you cannot knock this guy. The question is like, are these individual players that are putting in standout performances, win or lose, are they going to get picked up by some of the regions and given other opportunities? And that I don't know.
I think. Sorry, go on, Dan.
No, one of the other things I was going to say about this region is that teams look to try and pick up players that will be able to communicate more effectively. And, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, they all speak pretty decent English on the quiet, but maybe it's not quite perfect. And I wonder if sometimes that's putting people off in terms of like how they're picking up players as well. Because honestly, I swear to God, I think Smackler could play on a really, really big team. And I wonder whether people are put off because of the fact that he's not getting the breakthroughs in terms of tournaments like EU Masters. And let me assure you, it's not because of him slacking off. But I also wonder it's whether they're like, how's his communication going to be? How's this going to work out and stuff like that. So I wonder whether that's another aspect that's kind of holding players back within the region.
I just kind of want to go back to your point, kind of talking about the team around someone as well, because I think great players always have a great supporting cast, and I think when you look towards SKT is kind of the prime example that always stuck out in my mind was when you had Faker there, who was the big player for this team. You had a much more passive jungler in the likes of Bengi, who didn't take a lot of resources and actually stayed quite a lot around the mid lane and allowed this player to shine. And I think that if you don't have the best supporting cast there, well, you can't always have these big guys or the big performers shine on your team. I think that's kind of what the Baltics sometimes misses, is that they've got these great performers, but they don't always have the right tools surrounding them. And now when they're in the Baltics, which is that small pond, as we're kind of going with the metaphor here, it's not as big of an issue because they're not going against guys who know how to punish these mistakes or work around just that little bit more, and they can find the advantages. And I think that's where the Baltics starts to kind of waver, is once it does start to get to a point where, okay, no, now we really need to be A1 with how we're putting Smackler up or how we're getting, our mid laner like ZTY up. How are we actually supporting these guys? And I think that's where stuff can start to fall down and really hinder them when they do start to reach the big boys. Because if you're getting invaded 24/7 as a jungler because we've got lane pressure across the board, well, then you can't go and support the likes of ZTY and mid, and suddenly he's afraid to make plays because he doesn't have that backup, and the whole game plan starts to fall apart. And I think that's really where, when it does hit the big stages like European Masters, just those little things that just knock a player down just get overemphasized so much more.
Yeah, you can be a good player but look average if everything else is burning around you.
Yeah.
Is it time for a Baltic super team? Is it time to just pick a team of 5 players with one semi-decent sub and just kind of go, right, lads, it's for the region. It's to try and do this. We've seen it. We've seen it in a couple of the other regions. We've seen Greece do it. We've seen the Balkans do it a couple of times. Like, it's definitely something that has happened and has had varying levels of success. But, do you think that's something that could happen in the Baltics, or is it just more of a, they're very loyal to their particular brands?
I mean, you say loyalty. I mean, one of the big things that went on within the region between season 2 and season 3, which we're now in, is like just unbelievable roster moves. We had the Ensure roster, which is now Zalgiris, the big rival team. Yeah. It was like they lost half the team. It's like half of Manchester United moving to Manchester City or something like that. It's like, what the hell came in here? We got a brief sort of note. Yashiro, the player that we've made reference to a couple of times, did a pretty nice YouTube video in Lithuanian, and kindly one of the Lithuanian staff from from Game On that are organizing the Baltic Masters did a translation for us.
Shout out to Vlad.
Yeah, big shout out to Vlad. Yeah, and yeah, God, there was nowhere to be. I tried to listen into it. My God, Lithuanian's a complete other language. I'm not even convinced it's human. It's one of those languages that you would only find in like a Star Wars movie or something. Anyway, side note. But he gave us a breakdown. It was like, oh yeah, this squad moved to this squad. This player moved to here. These people joined in here. This happened here. And I'm just like, is anybody still with the same team? Because it kind of felt like that. So loyalty. Nah, I'm not convinced. Building a super team, I mean, I don't know, the feasibility is there, but one of the other things you have to take about the region is once again, it's the Baltics. Okay, you've got Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. It's 3 separate countries. It's not the same as like, Spain. Everyone speaks Spanish. We're all Spanish here. It's a huge freaking country with millions of people in it. Okay, that sleep their way through the afternoon and play League of Legends all night. All right, building a super roster within that sort of environment's fine, but if you're taking like the best Estonian top laner and the best Latvian jungler, and suddenly you start to not have these connections, the communication's not so good, and all of these kinds of aspects. One of the squads that was meant to take part in the tournament during the qualifications round had a couple of players playing from, I don't know, Czechoslovakia or somewhere like that to get them through the qualification stage. But they realized that the communication wasn't good enough with these players. And so they dropped them to bring in 2 more Estonians, I think it was. So it just goes to show you these, and this is what I was talking about earlier, language barriers. Language is super, super important when it's making a team, not just within League of Legends, but if you look across esports as a whole. And I've been around in this game for a long freaking time across multiple titles, and I've seen super teams come in, the likes of Counter-Strike, the likes of League of Legends, the likes of Dota, and all of these kinds of things. And when push comes to shove, personality, friendship, language, all of these kinds of things is absolutely clutch. That's one of the reasons that we saw. I mean, you made reference to the Greek super team, which completely bombed it and looks an absolute shocker. It doesn't always work. It doesn't always work.
And I think just kind of piggybacking off of that as well, I mean, I wouldn't even know to pick, because I mean, if even we look at Giannis, who we were looking at last split, like if we look at him, we were just praising him, saying he's one of the best junglers in the region. He was on 6 feet under last in season 2. They didn't win a single game. He looked terrible. Yet he's coming out and he looks like he's smurfing. So I don't know how to, like, obviously we can come back to communication or whatever the team dynamic was, but when you look at these players, you never really know how they're going to fit if you pop them into a different role. So this is where I'm kind of like looking at even like No Fast as well, 6 feet under, doing fantastic on Zalgiris, looks incredible. But again, 6 feet under, didn't win a single game last year. Where were these players' standout performances then? And that's where it kind of becomes a little bit tough to go, okay, yeah, this is the guy that I would have for that super team, because realistically, depending on the environment, these guys can play absolutely fantastically or look terrible.
I mean, you pick up an interesting one with Nofas just there, which is like he's playing alongside Xaviales. Is he looking good this season, or is he being made to look good this season?
True.
So we actually have we have a viewer requested question. Oh, it's a viewer requested question from Friggy Cake. Unknown alias. Do the Baltic region players in your opinions, of course, see EU Masters as a stepping stone to bigger regions like Spain, Germany, France, etc., or are they looking at this as a real stepping stone into LEC? And a follow-up question is, can the Baltic region ever hold on to its players if bigger regions like France, Spain, Germany come knocking on their door?
Great question, firstly. Really great question. And considerably well thought out in terms of the content, because you're absolutely spot on.
It's almost like he's like embedded in this stuff or something. Like.
So do we actually know who this guy is? Or
yes,
is
this is Fridge Cake, a guy from ESL UK. So he's a very, very, very well-known person in the UK for basically being well into the scene, basically, and he runs.
He's kind of outed himself.
Yeah, he runs EU Masters. I didn't want to say it just in case I wasn't allowed. Okay.
No, I was gonna say.
Yeah, so
getting outed on Twitch, it's
yeah.
not the first time. But anyway, it's a really, really great question. I mean, you'd have to speak to the players themselves, but I can give you my perspective and opinion on it, which is, it's totally a stepping stone to other regions. The region's poor. All right. Don't get me wrong. Living there is actually pretty cheap as well. But like when you have a look at some of the sort of the salaries that are going on within some of the different European regional leagues right now, some of these players are actually doing pretty decently for themselves. And I can totally understand why this might be a stepping stone for some of these players to move into other regions. I mean, Jesus, I live in the Nordics right now. I live in Sweden, and the Nordic scene's pretty well known for its League of Legends. We produced some reasonable players over the years. Even the Nordic scene is seen as a stepping stone to go and play in Spain, in Germany, in France, in the UK.
Turkey is a big one as well.
Yeah, Turkey, yeah. Russia. I mean, Jesus, how many of the Danes and the Swedes that I know have been over to play in Turkey and Russia right now? It's absolutely madness. And it'll be exactly the same for the guys in the Baltics. So, I think realistically, this is an opportunity for them to put on a display, try and get themselves picked up by a team in a bigger region right now and try and secure and climb their way up. At the end of the day, in all walks of life, this isn't just within League of Legends. This is like, this crosses all walks of life, outside of computer games. To try and get yourself to the top, you need to climb the ladder, and climbing the ladder is much easier in small steps than big steps, if that makes sense. Am I saying that I don't am I saying I think there is a player within the Baltic region right now that could play in the LEC or something like that? Maybe. But I'll tell you what, it will be much more sensible for them to take those small steps up through the ladder to sit and prove themselves all the way, rather than get thrown in right at the deep end and then end up drowning. Because we've seen that happen as well. Maybe not so much actually in the LEC, because I think most of the players that have played within it have been tested at some stage or other. But if you go and have a look at, Japan or China or, some of the other regions, every now and then there's like this, oh, we found this player in solo queue, zero experience playing anything or whatever. And, you get them up onto the big stage and damn, they choke hard.
I think though, definitely I see some of these guys looking at LEC. I think there's a lot of players that once they do get to the point where they are looking at, especially when you're looking at European Masters, you're going to go, this is a stepping stone.
Yeah.
I can move towards LEC, but I don't see them ever like just going back. Like France or Spain comes knocking. I don't even see a lot of players that would be in like the UK or even some of these bigger regions that wouldn't go, okay, cool, I'm going to go. Like if LDLC or Gamers Origin or Mad Lions or any of these teams started to come up and were like, hey, look, we want you to play for us. I think a lot of players would very quickly drop whatever team they had and moved on to it.
Yeah.
But to
and
say
we
that,
saw
like,
with Yashiro, just
exactly.
Yashiro is a prime example. He was hands down the best freaking player in the region last season. Yeah, not even a debate. Not even a debate. He was hands down the best player in the region. Poland comes a knock in, and he's just hopping over a couple of borders to go and play, somewhere else. We've already seen it.
Yeah, but I think a lot of these guys will definitely have hopes or dreams of at least of LEC titles or moving up into that LEC. And there's definitely there's a few players that I think if you could just get a little bit of help or a little bit of rounding out here and there, you could definitely see at that stage. And definitely going back to some of the players that we mentioned earlier on, there are guys here that I'd go. I mean, for Smackler, for example, I think if Smackler got a few more champions into his pool, I wouldn't be surprised to see him start looking towards some of the bigger regions and possibly an LEC spot. If you had the likes of Zavielas as well, if you rounded him out, he's very lane dominant. If you can start to move that over in towards other aspects where he's controlling the map more with vision and stuff like that, I think again we could see him move in and take that stepping stone the European Masters offers and look towards bigger things. But I don't think it's a case of looking at, oh, okay, well, I want to go to this region. I think a lot of these players will be looking at the tip top.
Is that what EUM Masters is to these players and orgs? Is it like you just said, like a stepping stone, like a stage, if you will, so you kind of go like, hi, I am legit, I am here, even if, as you said, like my team, I can't carry these 4 other guys, but you can see me trying my hardest. Is it like kind of like the first time we've really ever had that kind of a setup for players within the smaller regions of like the Baltics, the Balkans, to really kind of push themselves to kind of go like, hey, LFL, hi, I'm worth an import spot. Like, is that what this is? Is that like kind of is that how you guys see the EU Masters from a Baltics point of view?
So maybe I'm a little bit biased because I've seen the likes of Mad Lions who've moved on into LEC and kind of had that growth, and I've seen players like Cantos, for example, who end up getting a pentakill in the European Masters, and suddenly he's like talking about teams in UKLC and stuff like that. So these teams, and even like the likes of Penta Aim and stuff like that, or say Penta Aim on Twitter, Double Aim, sorry, who was this unbelievable jungler and now moving on towards other stuff. So I think it is kind of a two-step. It's a case of if you're at the tip top, it is that little bit of an oomph to like leader, for example, on Misfits. It gives them that extra little bump to kind of go, okay, you should pay attention to me because I've gotten all these extra clips and all these cool things that I've done. And even just to try and prove to, I mean, your own team, like, I mean, if it is Misfits Academy or Excel Academy, it's okay, no, I can do incredible stuff here. Give me a chance at that next spot. But it also does give the opportunity for the likes of those guys in the Baltics to go, no, I can make it towards, and again, going back to this metaphor of the bigger pool, I can get towards, the larger ocean. I can now move up towards that next step and prove that I do belong to pushing that LEC spot.
Yeah, obviously you guys know the UK sort of scene and some of the teams that are playing through there much better. I mean, I look at sort of my region and the likes of the Balkans as well. Um, through what fundamentally I come from the Nordics. Hopefully I'll join you guys to have the same conversation we're having today about the Nordics in a couple of weeks time. But yeah, I mean we've seen some great players come through this region as well as the Balkans that have used it as a stepping stone. You think about the likes of the Danish mid laner Priscorn, who's been to play for Movie Star Riders, Tricked, and a few other teams because of the exposure that he got through the EU Masters. You think about players like Skudair, the jungler from Denmark, who's been to play for, I think it was on Unicorns of Love. I can't remember correctly, so you have to, forgive me if I'm wrong. But when he played for UOL because of the opportunity that he got through, playing on the EU Masters with his, original Danish squad. Simply. Well. Yeah, Larsen, Pinoy, there's been an absolute handful of them. And the thing with the LEC, and we keep bringing reference to the LEC, is understanding that it's closed. It's a closed environment now. There's X number of teams with X number of spots within those teams, and unless players on those teams are getting worse, which playing against the best players in the world, living in a team house, playing all the freaking time, I'd hope they're not. I mean, it's not to say that they won't.
As well,
Yeah. Best region. What are you talking about? We win one competition once, and suddenly we're the best in the world.
Yes,
that's how it works. That's 100% how it works.
Flag that I wave.
All right, cool. Only as good as your last meal. All right. What can I say? But okay. But yeah. No. All right. Yeah. They're playing in the best region in the world. But like the simple reality of it is that they get all of these benefits, which keeps you playing at the top of your game. Therefore, to break into that pool of players, you need to be shit hot. Not just good, I mean like shit hot. Someone who's absolutely popping off, not just solo queue, but all of the tournaments that you sit and play in and all of the opportunities that you've got going on around you. So yeah, it's real simple. If you're playing in the Baltic Masters, which is a small pond, and you're a big fish, it doesn't matter how much you pop off within that region, because you need to pop off in bigger tournaments, bigger things, continue to prove that you are the big fish. Because if you've got aspirations to play in the LEC, then you need to be showing that you're not just the big fish in a small pond, you're a big fish in a big freaking ocean. And they're not going to get that within the Baltics right now. So the EU Masters is the next biggest thing. Playing in other big regions and continuing to consistently perform is the next big thing. That's the only route that they're ever going to have to get to the top, because I think the odds of someone getting picked up straight out of the Baltics right now, putting into an LEC team, is unlikely. Like, so freaking unlikely, it's untrue.
And I think it does go back to what Oshin's second question of this podcast is are they just good in the Baltic region, or are they good as a whole? And you never really know that until you get them out of that region and go, okay, cool, let's pop them up against the best in Spain, France, Germany, wherever it may be. And then we'll see how they really do with the big dogs, because you'll forever look brilliant if you stay in the Baltics. But it's always that question of, well, does he really have it, though? Is it really just the Baltics, or is this guy someone worth watching?
Yeah, and the reason that they need to step into bigger teams is because if you're on a weaker team, you're always going to look great. Does that make sense? Like if I took classic Thierry Henry and threw him into Gothenburg FC, of course he's going to look like a freaking superstar. It snows here half the freaking year. People don't kick a football around. We like ice hockey in Gothenburg. But when you move Thierry Henry into some big football team that you have heard of, I don't know why I'm talking about football. I don't even like football. It's the only player I can think of. You know what I mean?
You're English. It's in your blood.
But you get the nature of what I mean. I mean, the reason that they need to go and play for some other teams, in one of these bigger regions like Germany, UK, Spain, wherever it is because they need to show that they're a big fish in that pond too. Because with weaker supporting staff, to use Gosu's sort of comments earlier on, you're never going to shine. You know, if everything else is burning around you, you have to be pretty freaking special to continue to be a shining light.
Let's magnify it down then. Let's take, obviously EU Masters, we talked a lot about it. We talked about the opportunities and stuff like that. Let's talk about the Baltics. Let's talk about the Masters. Let's talk about the actual tournament itself. And, like you said, there's a lot of kind of like star players individually on each of the top 4 teams as such. And, it's 6, just in case anyone isn't aware, it's a 6-team tournament. Top 4 make it to playoffs, and then they go from there. Top 1, arguably, unless there's some mad change in the EU Masters structure, top 1 goes to EU Masters. That's kind of how it works. So everyone's looking at the same goal. It's win. It's just win. There's no second prize and you sneak into play-ins or anything like some of the major regions have. It's win or go home. And I want to talk to you a little bit about kind of like, a couple of the different teams, but more specifically, I want to talk about Ensure. Ensure kind of were they were very confident, shall we say, going into EU Masters Spring. They were called, I think it was On Our Way to EU Masters, and they were told they had to change their name or something similar to that. But they've looked strong, but not unbeatable in this season. They've looked definitely like I think they've lost one. I think they're 3-1 now. Is that correct? I'm not 100%. 3-1. Yeah, so they're 3-1. Looking into them, are they looking a bit shaky? Is there a clear favorite now in the Baltics, or is it very much kind of like it's anyone's game?
I mean, I think the first thing for me is that the Ensure that was season 2's winners and went to EU Masters is now mostly Zalgiris.
Yeah.
So, the players that qualified for the EU Masters last time around are now playing on the Zalgiris squad. Zalgiris were the team that finished second last time around, and several of their players have gone off to other places. So it depends whether you follow the team name or whether you follow the players, if that makes sense. I think Ensure are 100% one of the top teams within the region. Do I think they're the best right now? No.
I like, personally, I think it's Zalgiris. I think
Yeah.
Zalgiris have shown they're massively consistent. And as Dan said, I mean, they got the jungler and the support from Ensure as well. So they got Savielas and they got Agentis. And these guys look incredibly, incredibly well. But it's not like the last season where they're kind of head and shoulders even above everyone else. It's still really, really close. I mean, the top 3, Kenty, Zalgiris, and Ensure, all look like they could beat each other depending on the day.
Yeah.
And it's making for a far more interesting tournament. And it really does mean that when I'm looking towards, who will make it to European Masters or how they'll perform in European Masters, it makes it so much more difficult to call.
Yeah, 100% agree. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it will definitely be one of those 3 teams.
I don't think you've even gone in on a limb. You haven't even left the tree.
You're guaranteed one of 50% of the entire tournament.
Yeah, I was going to say, with respect, and I genuinely mean this, with respect to the other teams, I don't think any of the other 3 teams are in with a cat and hell's chance of making it to the final, let alone winning the tournament. It will definitely be one of these 3 teams. And I think you got it absolutely right, to be honest with you, Rob. It's like a sort of a rock, paper, scissors situation. Zalgiris, Ensure, and Kenty. You kind of feel as though any one of those teams can put up a result on the day, if that makes sense. Now, at the moment, within the sort of the bracket, if you will, everyone's playing against each other twice. It's like 2 best of 1s against every single team. So you get 1 red side, 1 blue side. So best of 1s is an unusual sort of entity anyway, if that makes sense. Heading into the semifinals, which are best of 3, then we've got the grand finals, which are going to be best of 5. I think you kind of get a different sort of picture, if that makes sense. Of the 3 teams, I think God, I don't know. Honestly, it's real tough. I mean, normally I'm the kind of guy who would be like, oh no, this team is going to win, hands down kind of thing. But actually, do you know what? I just don't know, because you look across the different teams and there's so much strength in different places. The Zalgiris team has got the likes of Agentis, CTY, Zavialas, and you're like, oh, well, this is absolutely, bona fide. This is a team that's going to sit and do the work. But then, you think about, someone like Arnax and Jornatis, if they put the pressure through Arnax and Jornatis on Ensure's team, which is their top laner in their jungle, and got themselves massive leads through that direction, they could just, split push or tear that team apart. Similarly, you look over at Kenty, it's all about Smackler in the top lane. They got Rim Tualis, this mid laner who is either absolutely batshit crazy or absolutely just batshit, and it's just like I don't know, man. Like you can't like. I'm not betting my house on this league. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't freaking know. This is roulette. This is not a sensible betting sort of scheme. These three teams, it could be anybody.
And this is the thing when you look at them, because I have the rosters open on my screen here on the side. I'm like, okay, so if I look at Zalgiris, I'm like, Agentis has gone to European Masters with Ensure. Xavi Ellis did as well. We have ZTY who played for Turin Esports back in the day and looks absolutely fantastic. And then I go, oh yeah, well, I mean, they seem like 3 to 5 have all gone to European Masters. It's a very experienced roster. And then I go and look at Ensure, and I'm like, okay, well, we have Domas, who's gone to European Masters. We have Kospect, who went with one of the Portuguese teams. And I'm like, oh, wait, these guys look really good. And then I'm like, okay, no, we'll look at, we'll go back towards Kenty. I'm like, damn, Smackler's like smurfing. Rim Tuolis as well looks really good. Peaceful if he can get the Ezreal. The Sivir is looking really good. And I'm just like,
they're bringing in this guy called Casper for their new AD carry, by the way. So Peaceful's going to be stepping out of the roster, and another guy coming in who is who's apparently really very good. We've not seen him yet. We don't know. He's coming completely out of the blue, but I think he is a Lithuanian player who's currently living in England, who has played some pretty decent stuff before and stuff. So we're gonna have to wait and see. But they've got an Afting who's sort of stepping in and out of their support role. He himself is honestly pretty freaking fantastic. I mean, these teams all seem to have like kryptonites to another. Our top lane will beat your top lane. Yeah, but our mid lane will beat your mid lane. Yeah, but our bot lane can do that. And it's just like, I don't freaking know. I mean, it's one of the joys of casting it, straight up with you. Me and Rob get the opportunity to cast some of the games between the good teams and the bad teams, and we get a crazy kill fest that finishes in 22 minutes, and it's a lot of fun. Rob doesn't get to put a word in edgeways, and I sit and chat shit from a play-by-play perspective for 20 minutes, all right? Then we get into like these games where you've got one of the top teams up against one of the other top teams. And God, it's like a chess match, of moving pieces forward and back and like macro rotations, small advantages here on the turret, that awesome decision to go for the team fight just when you've maximized your item spikes. And like, actually, it's like really fascinating. It's 100% one of the most fascinating regions that I've had the fortune to sit and cast, just because I genuinely feel as though the top teams within the region are on such a comparative level.
And I think you've nailed it there, where we hit so many different things in the Baltics, where you've got these massive fiestas where there's so much fun because there's just kills every second. It's going absolutely crazy. You have no idea what is going on. And there's like literally times where I'll start a point and I'm going, I'm not even going to get to the end of my first sentence, and I can already see the next play happening. And I just give up, like, Dan, it's back to you. And then there is these like super high level where everything has an impact and every decision is calculated out. And it'll be these incredible macro performances where you've only got a handful of kills, but you're looking at a 4 to 5k gold lead that's suddenly spread out of nowhere off of the back of one crucial decision. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that whenever we go to cast it, because it's 6 hours of a broadcast, you've got all these different styles and you get these incredible games, and you're just like, I don't know what I'm going to get going into any of these games, because any opportunity a team could go. I mean, we were looking at Ensure yesterday. Ensure that we're like this incredibly macro orientated team that play incredibly well, went for this Twitch funnel strategy and then inted on the bottom lane, which we thought was one of their best lanes. We're just like, what is going on? And they eventually end up winning because, I mean, the other three weren't trolling, but like, I had no idea where that game was going. And it's just a case of every game I go into, it is this brand new thing where I'm like, well, let's just open the presents and see what we get.
Yeah, that was a weird game.
Yeah.
that was a weird game. There's like twitch.tv/game on EU. Go and watch the VODs. I think it was game number 4 or game number 5 yesterday, but that was a weird game. I will put that one out.
Ensure versus Perks. Yeah, was the game.
Was it Ensure or Zalgiris?
I think it was
ZTY,
sure. It was ZTY. Oh, it was Zalgiris.
Yeah,
sorry,
Zalgiris. Anyway, yeah, but not that it matters. But yeah, it was a good game. But no, you're right. I mean, we'll go from one extreme to another. We'll have a game which has 48 kills in 30 minutes. And you're like, all right, this is a total clown fiesta. What are we doing here? We're trying to be professionals. And in reality, we're just sat laughing at each other about what the hell is going on. And then you'll go into the next game and it'll be the closest thing that you'll see to the LEC. It'll be 27, 28 minutes in the game. There'll be like 5 kills with these nuanced, strategic, considered plays with people camping in bushes, Fnatic style, with some crazy outplays. It's something that's really staggered me about this region more than anything is that I have never seen so many players escape with absolutely sweet FA health.
Yeah.
It's like they are escape artists. Okay? That is what they are.
Damas's escape yesterday, Yasuo.
Yeah.
We're just going to point out highlight clips at this stage. Yeah. Damas on Yasuo yesterday. I don't know how he got out of there. Like, he did not deserve to get out of there. He tries to greed for the scuttle crab. 5 members of the enemy team collapse on him, and some miracle run manages to worm his way out of it. I'm just like, how? Like that was like I actually need to rewatch that to figure out how in the name of Christ he actually managed that. But like, yeah,
I think during the broadcast I said, "Oh, he's dead here." Twice, maybe 3 times, and still somehow he gets out.
Caster curse there, 100%.
It was absolutely insane, and we see that more often than not. We got quite a few players that like playing Twitch as well, and you'll see these like cross map lanterns come in to save people's lives from absolutely nowhere, and it's crazy. But no, it's an exciting region, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Exciting, definitely the only word you can really use when the clown fiesta becomes that much of a it's just like, you know what, I want to be diplomatic.
You guys are from Ireland, home of the clown fiesta.
That's very true.
There have been games where I'm just looking at my screen afterwards, and I'm just on Discord with Dan. I'm just like, WTF? Like, like, what did we just watch? What in the name of God was going on in that game?
You love to hate them and you hate to love them. Is that kind of a setup as such? Play-by-play caster's dream. But we're almost coming up to the end. I have one or probably 2-part question. It'll go for both of you. Who do you want to be representing the Baltics at the EU Masters, and who do you think is going to be representing the EU Masters at the Baltics? Can be the same team, but I'll start off with you, Dan, because you're our guest, and guests go first. I know. Earlier on you said you couldn't call it, but I'm forcing you now because I'm going to get every reason to do it.
No, that's absolutely fair. That's absolutely fair. Who do I want to be representing the Baltic region? G2? Are they available?
Yeah. Just buy a spot.
Maybe. Big shout out to Carlos, by the way, my boy. But who do I want to be representing the region? Kenty. I want Kenty to be representing the region. I don't think that they'll do great in the EU Masters because I think of the 3 teams, in all honesty, I think they are probably the weakest one. But I genuinely think that this Smackler guy up in the top lane is great, and I really want to see what he does up against other top laners in the region. Of all the players, we've talked about a lot of good players here, and I think, there's arguments that XYZ jungler is as good as ABC jungler, or like these mid laners are parity, or all of these AD carries are crap, and these supports are XYZ. But Smackler stands out for me in the top lane. Like he is shoulders above every other top laner in the region, and I'd love to see what he does up against other top laners in the world. Who do I actually think will go? I think it will be Zalgiris this season, which to all intents and purposes is last season's Ensure. So, I mean, almost the same squad. But I think when you have a look at Zalgiris on the whole, the experience that they have through the jungle, the mid lane, their support player, the fact that Xavier is the support player is making this AD carry Nofast look great, because last season he looked like a nobody. I think this is the team that will represent the region when EU Masters comes around.
All right,
I'm finding it a little bit hard.
Just before you answer, Zalgiris, fun fact, they're a professional basketball team in Lithuania. So there you go. More teams getting involved.
They certainly are. They certainly are. We had one of the basketball players come over to watch the season 2 finals, and let's just say, I never felt so small in my life.
I was gonna say they're big guys, like in general, but I say, Rob, before I cut you off.
This guy's groin was next to my face. Masters.
Oh, good
That's all
lord.
I'm saying, right?
Right, that's how we'll clip this. That's the one quote we'll take. Out of context, just nothing else, just that line. But Rob, who do you want? Who do you want?
If you ever start streaming, that's your, like, if someone subscribes to you.
Yeah.
Here's what it is. Here's what it is. This guy's groin was next to my face.
Yeah.
There we go. We got it.
Thanks for subscribing. Anyway, but yes,
Thanks for the $5.
yeah. So who do you want and who do you think? Go, Sue.
It's really, really hard to say because I'm a little bit on the same fence as Dan, where I'd love to see Smackler and what he can do at a top level. I think he really deserves an opportunity to shine in that regard. But it's really hard because each of the top three teams are kind of who I'm looking at. All have their own respective things that are really, really cool about them. Like Kenty's early game is so much fun to watch because they've got all these different moving parts that are all, working in tandem, and it takes you even like a couple, if you're watching it takes you 5 to 10 seconds for you to actually piece together what they're going to do because it's so intricate in the way they move. And that is such a cool thing that they could bring to a European Masters level. I think would work really well for the Baltics because European Masters, there's so much action in the early game because teams are trying to one up each other and just try and get whatever advantage that they can. But then I look at the likes of Insured. I think, the way they draft is so clever. We saw it yesterday where they pulled a massive bait and switch where they locked in the Corki and we were like, okay, well, it's Corki. It's clearly going into the mid lane. And suddenly so Rimtuolis on the opposite side ended up locking in a Xerath because he liked Xerath into Corki. Perfect, I'm fine. And next thing, they swapped that Corki into the top lane. Thomas picked up a Yasuo for himself. And you're just looking there with your head in your hands for Kenty going, what the hell are we supposed to do now? You've got this horrific lane matchup and Domus ran away with the game. And I think when you're able to pull these really cool things in a draft phase where you bait one thing in to pick up another, I think that would be incredible again at a European Masters level because you kind of need to have that one-upmanship when it does come to drafts. And then, of course, I think Zalgiris are just look absolutely unstoppable. ZTY, monster in the mid lane. You've got Zabielas that we've been touting about all night, saying how good he is in the support role as well. And I think, honestly, I think Zalgiris is going to be the team that goes. I think they've looked the most formidable and the ones that kind of have that just stone wall to them where it's like it's trying to find a crack and there's not really a huge amount there. The only thing I'd kind of say for Zalgiris is that the draft phase in cases can be a bit shaky, but every single time they do end up in these shaky situations, the individual performances come out and they just end up beating the teams anyway. So I think Zalgiris will be the team to go just because they're such a stacked roster. But I think I'd like to see them work on some of their other out of game aspects. And I think if that was the case, well, then they would look like an absolute, like the team that I'd want to go because I think they'd give the most or show what the Baltics is capable of the most. But at the moment, it is super up in the air as to who I definitely want to go because there's reasons why you'd pick all of these teams.
Yeah,
there really is. Yeah. There really is.
As I said, it's early days. We're only in week 2 of 5, effectively. Got a lot of games to go, but and that's going to be where we're going to end this one. Thank you so much to Challengermode Dan. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show, full of knowledge. Gosu, always here. If you're not here, I'm sad. But, don't really have to say much else about that. But yes, thank you to everyone who joined us. Thank you to Friggy Cake for the fantastic question. We'll be back again on Monday, undefined time, because we have to figure out what suits our guests. But we'll be back next Monday for another section of our road trip. But for now, we'll see you guys later.